Have you ever stopped to think about what would happen if, suddenly, Europe found itself forced to fight alone for its own survival? Imagine waking up to the news that major cities have lost power. There's a shortage of clean water, medicine has vanished from the shelves, and drones are flying over civilian areas with unknown intentions. It sounds like a movie scene, but this is precisely the scenario European leaders are now seriously considering and acting on before it is too late. Before we dive into this urgent topic, I want to invite you to join the conversation. Do you believe Europe is really on the brink of a direct conflict with Russia? Do you think the West is prepared to deal with a world where war may become common again? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications, because what we're discussing today could affect not only Europe, but the entire global balance of power. This decisive week in July 2025, the European Commission approved an unprecedented plan. This is not just an economic strategy or an administrative measure. It's a full-scale war preparation across the continent. The plan involves stockpiling massive amounts of essential supplies, designed for both civilian and military use. And here's the most revealing part. All of this is being done with Russian Vladimir Putin clearly in mind. The new European directive aims to ensure self-sufficiency during the most critical period, the first 72 hours after an attack or systemic collapse. That's when panic spreads, institutions weaken, and populations are most vulnerable. That's why the plan includes canned food, basic medicine, generators, water purification systems, drones, mobile bridges, and even submarine cable repair equipment, an entire logistical arsenal prepared to withstand the realities of modern warfare. But it doesn't stop there. The second part of the plan is specifically focused on medical countermeasures. The European Commission is investing in stockpiles of antibiotics, chemical antidotes, decontamination kits, and iodine pills crucial in a nuclear war scenario. European leaders understand that an attack today doesn't always involve missiles or tanks. War can be waged through biology, cyber. Behind this strategic shift lies a growing and increasingly explicit concern among European leaders that Russia, should it win the war in Ukraine or even reach a favorable ceasefire. Denmark's prime minister was one of the first to voice what many fear. If Putin emerges victorious in Ukraine, within 4 or 5 years the Russian military could be fully rebuilt and ready to pose a direct threat to European security. This isn't speculation. It's a cold analysis based on years of aggressive behavior, military investment, and authoritarian resilience since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. The European Commissioner for Crisis Management reinforced this concern, saying that Europeans are fully aware of the threats they face, and they go beyond traditional warfare. We're talking about sabotage, cyber attacks, power grid, blackouts, and even chemical or biological assaults on densely populated urban centers. What is happening is the recognition of a new geopolitical reality. Europe can no longer count on the United States as it once did. The rise of American leaders with isolationist views, like Donald Trump, has raised serious alarms. The growing U.S. detachment from European affairs is forcing the European bloc to assume full responsibility for its own defense. And that change requires more than words. It demands massive, tangible investment. Initial estimates suggest that Europe would need at least 500 billion euros in additional defense spending just to build a viable deterrence infrastructure. Part of that amount could come from over 300 billion euros in frozen Russian assets still held in European banks, especially in Belgium. But even with that, it will take unity, urgency, and coordination. So what's the worst-case scenario haunting Europe's political and military leaders? That Putin, emboldened by victory and supported by a patriotic population, turns his gaze toward the West. According to many analysts, today's Russia, entirely militarized, cannot survive in a state of peace. That's right, peace, for the current Russian regime, means collapse. Its economy is now geared toward the war machine. Its society has been conditioned to see war as a permanent state. And more than 1 million psychologically scarred and battle-hardened soldiers will be returning home with no real reintegration plan. In other words, Russia needs war to keep functioning. This twisted logic is not just internal, it's dangerously global, because it suggests that if there is no more Ukraine to conquer, Putin may target the Baltics, Finland, Sweden, or even Poland next. These are NATO countries, but that doesn't make them immune to hybrid warfare or lightning-fast offensives. especially if the West shows hesitation or division. That's why the European Commission's stockpile initiative is more than a preventive measure. It's a firewall against chaos. The stockpiles are divided into 3 categories: high impact in the short term. These are the essentials for the first 72 hours: water, medicine, generators, power banks, and solar panels. The goal is to ensure that populations near frontline zones can survive and avoid immediate social collapse even in the face of missile strikes or infrastructure failures. Medium impact. In the midterm, this phase involves building secure raw material centers across protected regions. These facilities will reduce Europe's reliance on foreign sources for vital war-related resources like rare earth metals. Their locations will be dispersed to prevent Russia from eliminating them all in an initial wave of attacks. Low impact in the long term. The Commission knows that in a prolonged war, no stockpile lasts forever. That is why this final phase is focused on converting civilian industries into wartime production centers, not just for weapons and ammunition, but also for basic items like food, medicine, and clothing. Europe wants to be able to endure a long war, should it become unavoidable. This new reality demands a shift in mindset not just from leaders, but from citizens. What was once unthinkable war returning to European soil in the 21st century is now a real possibility. And it's something they're preparing for, urgently and pragmatically. Some may say this rhetoric is exaggerated, that Putin wouldn't dare attack NATO nations directly. But since 2022, the world has learned that underestimating Russia comes at a steep price. Ukraine paid dearly for that mistake. Europe doesn't want to be next. We are at a historic crossroads. Either the West unites and prepares itself, or it risks repeating the same tragic errors of the past. The multipolar world is already a reality. Peace, unfortunately, is no longer guaranteed. Now tell me, do you think Europe is right to prepare this way? Are we on the edge of a new global conflict? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters. And if this content resonated with you, share it. The more people understand what's happening behind the headlines, the more capable we'll be individually and collectively of responding to the challenges ahead.